What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are pumped because Dallas Cowboys training camp is just around the corner. We have been counting down the days here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you do subscribe if you have not done so already. We've been looking at every position on the Dallas Cowboys roster, examining where they were flawed last year, if they were flawed, or where they were really great last year, and where they have made improvements, obviously, as we all hope for the 2021 season. Today, we have the final installment of our training camp preview series because, like I said, training camp is just about here. I will be out in Oxnard, California with our friends at ESPN San Antonio over the final week of July. If you're going to be there, let me know in the comments. You can always tweet me, send me a DM on Instagram or Twitter at RJ Ochoa, or shoot me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. We can figure something out if you're going to be out there watching America's team. But for today, we are talking about maybe the most important players on the Cowboys roster when it's all said and done. The final position, we saved the best for last, hopefully, the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. That's right. The offensive line has been the hallmark of the Dallas Cowboys, I would say kind of for like the last 6-7 years-ish. Obviously, the drafting of Zack Martin in 2014 was maybe not the final Infinity Stone, but kind of the penultimate Infinity Stone. And then the Cowboys landing Lyle Collins after the 2015 NFL draft was indeed the last one. Obviously, the Cowboys offensive line has been incredible. It's been the best in the NFL at different times. I do think as much as we all believe in the Cowboys offensive line moving forward in 2021, I don't think that they are what the national media believes they are. I think that you watch any national show, any of your friends who are not a Cowboys fan, people who don't know, people who aren't watching the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, you know what I mean? They still believe that the Cowboys offensive line is at that elite level. And they are very good, and they have some very good players. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we can admit that they've had a bit of a drop-off, but that's just how great that they were, that they can have that drop-off and still be very good. Now, last year, obviously, was a season where they had a tremendous drop-off for a number of different reasons that we'll get to in a second. But Cowboys offensive line is looking up, and that's just kind of a weird space to be in, right? That it's been so long that they've just kind of been sitting at the top that the idea of them being this sort of bounce back group has been so rare, because how do you bounce back from being number one? But here we are in 2021, and that's kind of where we're at. So before we take a look at the roster as a whole, we're going to obviously discuss where things went wrong in 2020. And last year was one that we all want to forget for a lot of reasons. But specifically when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, their offensive line was, I don't want to say the foundation of their problems, but in many ways was the foundation of their problems. Losing Dak Prescott obviously goes a long way in terms of adding to the dysfunction, so on and so forth. But the Cowboys really, this was it. I mean, we give Andy Dalton a hard time. We talk about Ben DiNucci. Garrett Gilbert obviously gave it a run, the one start that he made for the Cowboys last season. But all of that is aided if you do have a functional offensive line. But unfortunately, that was not the case. As we all know, the offense as a whole did kind of bounce back later on in the season when Zack Martin's health started to stabilize a little bit. But because they did not have Tryon Smith, because they did not have Lyle Collins for the whole season, it was difficult. They really got off their left foot, and that's really a difficult thing to kind of catch up to, as we saw the Cowboys really playing catch up. I thought about catch up right there. I don't know why, but really playing catch up throughout the season, even when Dak Prescott was still in there. Now, while that was an unfortunate situation and an unfortunate season to go through, certainly for all of us as Dallas Cowboys fans, I do think that you can take a positive out of it. And I'm not trying to put lipstick on a pig. I'm not trying to just be super optimistic, but I've said before, when people talk about who should be the swing tackle for the Cowboys in 2021, I'm not saying that it should not be Ty Nsekhe. However, I do think that the Cowboys have a really valuable is a weird way to put it, because I know when I say that, you're going to think that that wasn't a valuable experience, but they did have a valuable experience in playing Brandon Knight and Terrence Steele so much. Obviously, Brandon Knight last year was in his second year in the NFL as an undrafted free agent. Terrence Steele was a rookie in the NFL as an undrafted free agent. And so here they are in their third and second years respectively, and they have basically, a lot of NFL experience starting at tackle. And that really is never the case for undrafted free agents so early in their NFL careers, but it is not just for one, but for both Brandon Knight and Terrence Steele. And so while I am in no way trying to, establish some point of heavy belief in either Terrence Steele or Brandon Knight, maybe they'll impress us in training camp. But what I am saying is that these are points of depth that you didn't necessarily have a year ago. You have learned about them. They have grown. You have developed them, et cetera, et cetera. Joe Philbin has had his hands on these players. And so that is a nice a nice kind of plus out of a year that was really heavy in a lot of different senses. And so, hey, maybe that's me being bright and sunshiny, but it's a bright, sunshiny time of year. It's really hot outside. So it was mostly negative, obviously. And a lot of the reason for the negativity, again, when it came to the performance of the Cowboys offensive line was the fact that they got 2 games combined out of Tryon Smith and Lyle Collins. And anytime that happens, regardless of who your quarterback is, people love to talk about how, Dak Prescott's statistics were great, but the Cowboys were 1-3 during the game that he got hurt. Obviously, they went on to win that game to get to 2-3. And look, Dak Prescott can throw for 500 yards every single game all he wants, but if the Cowboys offensive line isn't functional, no quarterback's going to be able to kind of, have a stable amount of success in the wins department. And that was certainly the case for the Cowboys last season. But thankfully, the Cowboys have made a number of improvements and have gotten healthy. That has honestly probably been the biggest factor as far as this offensive line group is concerned. When we look at the arrows pointing up in 2021, Dak is back. Did not mean to rhyme. It's an easy rhyme. I apologize. But Dak is back, and as a veteran quarterback, as a quarterback who now understands the game at a deeper level, we've seen Dak Prescott evolve and grow and get better and better and better every year, not just mechanically, not just fundamentally, but from the cerebral standpoint of the game. I think Dak Prescott's understanding of NFL offenses, of NFL defenses, is obviously higher than it's ever been, and so that goes a long way. That goes a long way at helping your offensive line if you are a quarterback. Ultimately, the 5 guys in front of you are the ones who are physically tasked with blocking for you and blocking for your running backs and all sorts of things like that, the obvious things. But quarterbacks help their offensive lines, right? And I think we see that in a lot of different senses. People love to talk about how many sacks quarterbacks take. Well, sacks are a quarterback stat. Sacks are a result of quarterbacks maybe not necessarily understanding or knowing fully what they're doing. I think a great example of that is you look at Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles last year, getting sacked at an unbelievable rate. And everybody's talking about, man, this offensive line's doing nothing to help him. Jalen Hurts comes in and is all of a sudden not getting sacked at all. It's because he has a different understanding. There's a different, kind of rhyme and rhythm to it all. So Dak being back helps everything. He really is the rising tide that lifts all boats all throughout the team, but obviously on offense and specifically the 5 guys up front. Now, while Dak Prescott's back, we haven't even mentioned Tyler Biadasz yet, and we'll get to all the players in different positions in just a moment, but Tyler Biadasz is entering year 2. And last year, I think we were all really excited. It was obviously a really fun Dallas Cowboys draft class that it was difficult to pick a player to be most excited about. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb kind of headlined the class, but you get my point. And so Tyler Biadasz entering year 2 had his own share of injury issues last year. Joe Looney was another stable point of depth for the Cowboys and obviously still out there in free agency. We hope the best for Joe. But Tyler Biadasz entering year 2, this is the time, right? The Cowboys traded up in the 4th round of last year's draft because they believed in him. And I think he played well last year when he obviously got his opportunities and, had a bit of a bump there. But I certainly believe that, Tyler Biadasz in year 2 is going to be even better than Tyler Biadasz in year 1. And that was a fine player. I think it's unfortunate that he's in a situation, especially given where he went to college, that a lot of people are so quickly expecting him to be Travis Frederick. That's a hard thing. And if we have that expectation, he might never live up to it because Travis Frederick was an incredible center in the NFL and certainly for the Dallas Cowboys. So Tyler Biadasz, year 2, I think he's fine. I think you can make an argument that he is not the worst starter on the offensive line, which we'll get to in just a moment as well. But we mentioned Ty Nsekhe. I do want to say that just because while the Cowboys do have points of depth with valuable NFL experience in Brandon Knight and Terrence Steele, the fact that they were able to bring in Ty Nsekhe to kind of hedge their bet at swing tackle is really valuable. You have to acknowledge, you have to be honest with yourself if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, which all of us are here, that Tryon Smith probably isn't going to play an entire season. We have no idea what we're going to get from Lyle Collins throughout a 17-game regular season. And that's the point. Do you know the last time, I've said this several different places, we talk about it on our shows on the Blog on the Boys podcast network. Make sure you do subscribe, by the way. It's available on all major podcast platforms. If you can, leave a rating, write a review, helps us a lot. But do you know the last time that Tryon Smith played a full regular season, obviously 16 games? Because I think the answer will shock you, because it shocked me when I first realized it a couple of years ago. The last time that Tryon Smith played a full regular season without missing any games was 2015. Dak Prescott has never, ever throughout his NFL career had a full season of Tryon Smith. And again, those were 16-game regular seasons. I know you believe that Tryon Smith is healthy. When we talked to DeMarcus Ware, you can go watch our interview with him on our channel, go back on our feed. He talked about how he had the same surgery as Tryon Smith, and he believes that he'll be healthy. I love DeWare. DeWare's going to be a Hall of Famer a year from now, and I hope he's right. But the reality is, if you're going off of trends, if you're going off of likelihoods, is that Tryon Smith is not going to play an entire season. And again, now it's possible that Lyle Collins doesn't play an entire season. especially because it is now 17 games long. Then you got to get to the playoffs, and obviously you got to get to the Super Bowl. There's a lot involved here. And so you have to hedge your bet. You have to have tackle options. The fact that Tyneseki's around now gives the Cowboys one option before they have to, I don't want to say smash the glass, but Brandon Knight's a fine swing tackle option, I think. And so if he's your secondary option because you have a stable veteran like Tyneseki, I think you're doing all right for yourself as far as depth is concerned. So good job by the Cowboys there. Let's take a look at the different positions and the depth throughout them, just because we kind of feel like it. That's kind of the whole point of this whole exercise. At center, the Dallas Cowboys do have Tyler Biadasz and Braylon Jones. This is kind of a, I don't want to say an open book, what's the phrase? Open, shut door book, whatever case, scenario, situation, whatever. This is Tyler Biadasz's job. I do think, while we're going to get to guards in just a moment, I think that Connor McGovern and even Connor Williams maybe factor in here. But this is the Tyler Biadasz show, and we all know that. So let's go ahead and get over to guard and kind of figure out where that ultimately kind of, works itself out. You do have, again, these are listed alphabetically. Matt Farniok, the last pick of this year's Dallas Cowboys draft class. We'll see. Best of luck to Matt, but the Cowboys have 11 draft picks. I think that Matt Farniok is a practice squad candidate, in my own humble opinion. But Zack Martin, maybe the best guard in the NFL. Obviously, there's a couple of contenders there, but future Pro Football Hall of Famer. We all love Zack Martin, the gob. Then you've got Connor McGovern and Connor Williams. And these are really interesting things to kind of figure out, because Connor Williams obviously has started for the Cowboys ever since being drafted in 2018. But Connor Williams is in a contract year, right? And that's a really awkward thing, because Connor Williams, I think, kind of like Tyler Biadasz, if we're, right now we're sitting on the couch, you and me, we're just having a couple of milkshakes, we're talking. We noted that it's a little unfair to so quickly compare Tyler Biadasz to his predecessor and Travis Frederick. And it is, because it's difficult to be that good in the NFL. And because Tyler Biadasz went to Wisconsin, it's expected that he would be just like the last center from Wisconsin, especially, given the fact that he was drafted in the offseason that Travis Frederick retired last year. When you look at Connor Williams, he has not quite developed into the elite territory that the Cowboys offensive linemen before him ultimately did themselves, especially early on in their careers. We're obviously specifically talking about Tryon Smith, Zack Martin, and Travis Frederick, right? Lyle Collins, I don't know that Lyle has ever reached that elite mark, right? At different points in time, Tryon Smith has been the best left tackle in the NFL. Zack Martin has been the best overall guard in the NFL. Travis Frederick was at one point in time the best center in the NFL. I don't think Lyle has ever reached that exact height at right tackle. He's been among the best, and he had a very good 2019 season, which looked great after the contract the Cowboys gave him. Really looked like they got a steal there, and then last year was really frustrating. But he's very, very, very good. But even then, I don't think Connor has even experienced the Lyle sort of experience, right? Connor's just been okay. He's been fine. He's average is not quite the word I want to use, but he's just been okay. He's been fine. Obviously got injured in 2019 on Thanksgiving Day. Last year was kind of the lone survivor of all the Cowboys starting offensive linemen. And that's tough, right? That's a tough spot to be in. And there's some level of impressiveness there that he obviously survived and made it through and was a point of leadership, but he has not taken the leap that we would have liked to see at this point in his NFL career. And, to that point, I have a hard time seeing how the Cowboys will give him a second contract, because generally speaking, the Cowboys, if you are a Cowboys player that got a second contract, and to be clear, we mean a sizable second contract, not just your kind of 1-2 year deals that we've seen other role players get, you have to be a baller. You have to be an exquisite baller. I mean, that generally is what has to be the case. And that has not been the case for Connor Williams. And so a lot of the future is depending on Connor Williams and ultimately what he is or is not going to be in 2021 for the Dallas Cowboys. Because while we're talking about Connor Williams, what happens with Connor McGovern? I mean, Connor McGovern is a question mark that we still don't have any answer to. Obviously, the Cowboys drafted him in 2019, third-round pick. I mean, so you're expecting a lot from that. And that's where, we've talked so much about when it's come to the draft, you have to hit on these picks. And Connor McGovern has just been this kind of, where's he going to play? Is he going to play? What position does he play, right? He obviously comes from Penn State, and, there was a lot of hype around him. Again, 2 years ago now, we haven't really seen anything. And so the Cowboys have a weird, I don't want to say it's a good problem to have. Anytime I do one of these videos and I have to say the phrase I don't want to say several times, I feel uncomfortable about it. And that's kind of, I don't feel uncomfortable, but there's just, this is a weird, a weird thing, right? If you look at these three players, and I don't mean to lump Tyler Biadasz into this, but if you look at Tyler Biadasz, Connor Williams, and Connor McGovern, what's the best sort of mix here, right? Like what's the best, if we go back to the Cowboys days of getting the best five on the field, shout out to the Chaz Green days. What's the best overall mix here? Is it Connor Williams at left guard? Or is it Connor Williams at right tackle? Is it Lyle Collins at left guard? I'm not trying to move Lyle, but if we're mixing stuff around, right? If we're just looking at it, if it's like picture day and we're having different people stand up in the back, in the front row, whatever. Tyler Biadasz, I think, is the center that we all want. Is Connor McGovern better than Connor Williams? Should he be starting ahead of him? I don't know, because we don't know anything about Connor McGovern. I mean, he is such an open-ended question mark for the Cowboys that it's difficult to kind of figure out where he ultimately factors in. And that's a frustrating thing for a third-round draft pick entering his third year, but it is nonetheless the situation the Cowboys have. Their Connor situation, I guess that's what we'll kind of title it here. It's a weird one, and the Cowboys have to. That's got to be one of the important things they figure out at training camp is kind of where each of these players, the Connors specifically, factor in to their overall offensive line grouping. But that's the guards. The guards is just one thing. The Cowboys tackles, I oddly feel some level of peace about, I guess I would say, or some level of measured peace maybe. You have Isaac Galarcon, really rooting for him. I know we have a lot of people, a lot of fans who are rooting for him as well. Really want to see him succeed in the NFL. We'll see what his situation ends up being. It's exciting to consider that he will now have a training camp. He will have a full preseason. Those are very good things. Really rooting for Isaac Galarcon, but I don't think he factors into the true 53-man roster stuff. Maybe another practice squad candidate, which is good. He needs some valuable NFL experience and all those things that come with that. But Josh Ball, who we'll get to in a moment. We've already discussed Lyle Collins. Mitch Hyatt hasn't really been a thing. You do have Brandon Knight, Ty Nsekhe, who have gotten a lot of love here in this video today. Shout out to them. Eric Smith, Tryon Smith, and Terrence Steele. So the Cowboys, I think we forget about this. Maybe you don't forget about this, but we talked so much about how the Cowboys got sniped in the 2021 NFL draft. And if you were with us on our live show, you remember how hectic that was when both Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn went the 2 picks ahead of the Cowboys at number 10 overall before they traded back with the Eagles and ultimately took Micah Parsons at 12. We all were obviously talking, at 10. I remember that vividly. What should the Cowboys do? And the consensus was trade back, which is what the Cowboys did. Obviously, the Eagles came up, got Devontae Smith. The Giants traded out. Justin Fields went to the Chicago Bears. And the Cowboys had an option. For the second time, the Cowboys had an option in the first round with a top 12 pick and did not take Rashawn Slater. And that, to me, I don't want to say that could be something that bites them in the end, but that is something that a lot of us were not hesitant about, but a lot of us, scratching our heads about. And look, we're all very happy and very excited to see what Micah Parsons offers to this defense. Specifically, we all agree this defense needed an infusion of help at every single level. And Micah Parsons certainly figures to be somebody that's going to really kind of change the way that their defense overall operates, or operates in an overall sense, if I could speak proper English. But they passed on Rashawn Slater. And again, the part that I want to focus on is they passed on Rashawn Slater not just once because they passed on him at 10 overall, but they passed on him twice because they passed on him at 10 and then at 12 with trading back and then taking Micah Parsons. And so Rashawn, when we did all the mock drafts that we did, it made sense to think that Rashawn Slater might fall to the Cowboys. But a lot of times, a lot of mocks we did, we took Rashawn Slater. And the fact that the Cowboys didn't, and I don't want to read too much into this, through an optimistic lens, but the fact that they passed on Rashawn Slater not just once but twice seemingly suggests a level of belief in the health and the overall wellness of the Cowboys tackle situation, which is obviously headlined by Tryon Smith and Lyle Collins, but you do have other options as we're looking at here. You do have Ty Nsekhe, you do have Brandon Knight, you do have Terrence Steele, and you do have Josh Ball. What is Josh Ball going to be for the Cowboys this season as their 4th round pick? I don't know. Obviously, we're talking about Josh Ball, the football player, because there's a lot of stuff off the field, none of which anybody approves of. But on the field, it's hard to figure where he's going to factor in because does he immediately outrank Terrence Steele or Brandon Knight? No. Maybe he outworks them, outproves them in training camp. That's a possibility. But Ty Nsekhe is this team's swing tackle for now. Maybe Josh Ball is kind of the swing tackle of the future. I think that's the role he has, but it's so hard to really expect anything sizable from Josh Ball in 2021. I think if you look at all of the Cowboys draft picks, actually, I think he might get the least amount of work on the field just because it's hardest to figure out a spot for him to really flourish this season. Because if the Cowboys are in a pinch, even if Tyron and Lyle Collins are both out for a game, like was the case for most of last season, I think you're still relying on Ty Nsekhe and Brandon Knight over Josh Ball. And I think, again, if you have to reach deeper down into the barrel, you're still going with Terrence Steele over Josh Ball. So I think he has the hardest time getting on the field, but at least there will be preseason. At least there will be training camp, all the things that we missed out on last year. Finally, speaking of the preseason, speaking of training camp, when all that is done, it will be time for the regular season. And these are our projected starters for the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, the easiest projected starters we have done so far throughout this series. From left to right, we got Tryon Smith at tackle, Connor Williams at guard, as we discussed, Tyler Biadasz at center, Zack Martin at right guard, as he has always been, and Lyle Collins at right tackle. Is this the best offensive line in the NFL? No, not anymore. But it is maybe the 5th, 7th best. I think you're in that territory. Certainly when they're all healthy, they're all playing at their peaks. This is definitely a group that challenges to be one of the best in the National Football League, a group that is aided by a veteran star quarterback in Dak Prescott, a group that obviously hopefully can lead to more success for Ezekiel Elliott on the ground through the running game. I'm not at all trying to blame the offensive line for Zeke's struggles last year. Obviously, the fumbling has nothing to do with the offensive line, but it is the beginning, right? It's the beginning. It's the trenches. It's where everything kind of starts ultimately in the game of football. And so you need this group. We've talked so much about different players, about Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Demarcus Lawrence, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, Trayvon Diggs, Donovan Wilson, on and on and on, Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore, etc. But all of those players, all those people, ultimately, it all starts here, right? Like this is where it can all begin and end, as we saw last season for any respective football team, specifically the Dallas Cowboys. So there's a lot of, I was going to say a lot of expectation, but there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope that rests through these 10 shoulder pads. And we are, again, I think there's measured confidence, measured optimism, measured hope. And that's a really exciting thing. But anytime this group has been, moving and grooving and grinding at a stable pace without any of the, setbacks that they had last season, they have been a group that can lead to legitimate success, not just offensively for the Cowboys, but in an overall sense that translates to wins, which is obviously what we want to see the most. So, that's the offensive line. And that is our training camp preview series here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. I can't thank all of you enough. We recently passed 10,000 subscribers here on the channel. This is something we've been working on very hard this offseason, this channel as a whole. We have such big plans, such exciting plans for the season. We're thankful for all of you who have already chosen to come on this ride with us. We're excited to see where the 2021 season takes us, not just as Dallas Cowboys fans, but obviously at Blogging the Boys. So we are so appreciative to you for making us part of your Dallas Cowboys experience. It's our job to give you the best Dallas Cowboys content that we can, and we work around the clock to make sure that we do that. So please check out bloggingtheboys.com. Please subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. Leave a rating, write a review. That helps us a lot. Please subscribe here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Like I said, I'll be out in Oxnard for the final week of July with our friends at ESPN San Antonio. Got some fun stuff planned there as well. So make sure to stay tuned. Follow along. I'm RJ Ochoa on Twitter or Instagram. You can shoot me a DM there if you have a question, comment, whatever. You can always email me, like we say, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. And you can do me a favor and you can have the best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next time.